Hello, welcome. Bueno, esto va a ser en inglés. Si no habláis inglés y os interesa entenderlo, por favor, poneros auriculares. Y si no habláis inglés y os da igual, pues no entenderéis nada. Okay. Estamos aquí con Isobel Waller-Bridge. Isobel, welcome. Un aplauso para ella. Y voy a pedir que alguien nos abra el vino. ¿No queréis que lo hagamos nosotros? No, yo no puedo abrirlo, estoy trabajando. Well, hello, welcome.
Hello.
I'm telling these people to open the wine
It's
for
not
us.
open, yeah, exactly.
The director of the festival. Because we are working.
Yes, exactly, it's true.
Bueno, ¿puc treballar ja o no?
She's the star.
Okay. Isobel.
The wine is the stuff.
First thing first. First time in Barcelona?
No, I've been a couple of times before, but only as a tourist. It's really nice to be here, working and
As a professional.
as a professional. Yeah.
Okay, let's start from the beginning. You're going to Paris
I'm going to Paris
tomorrow
tomorrow.
to work with Alexander McQueen.
They're playing my music with an orchestra for Paris Fashion Week. Their show.
We hate you for that.
Yeah. Okay. I'm excited.
You
I think
know
it'll be
it.
good. I know. I get to wear McQueen, so that's.
So they're going to give you clothes and
they're
everything
gonna
for
give me
free?
clothes. Yeah, I know.
And you can keep them.
Yes, apparently. I know.
And-
I hope so.
And they also pay you.
They do. Yeah, exactly. They do. It's good. It's important.
So let's go for the first question. Basically, soundtracks and scoring, it seems like the territory of men. I was talking to a friend this morning about, there's only a few women
Yeah.
working in this business. What do you think that happens, and if it is changing?
Well, it's funny because I know loads of women who are doing it, but it's true. Visibility.
The visibility.
The visibility. Yeah, exactly. Is the different thing, and it is changing loads. And I think it's a lot to do with. When I was when I was at university and when I was at school, the main composers that I was being sort of educated about were men, I suppose, in the kind of classical world and also in the film music world. So it never. I don't know whether maybe that is an influence, and people think maybe it's not a world for me because they don't see women, many women doing it, but. Then weirdly, as I started working, I realized that all the composers that I was looking up to, especially in the classical world, were women. So, and then I realized that there are loads of women. But I suppose Hollywood is a different animal, and that's going at a speed of its own, and so it's changing.
So if I ask you about let's drink.
Sure.
Thank you, Beto.
Thank you.
Cheers, people.
Oh no, it's nice. I like it.
I know. So if I ask you about your references, what kind of music were you listening before working in the business, and how that music influenced your work? Do you have any kind of
Yeah, it's funny. I listened to so much classical music when I was growing up. I really came to kind of other music kind of late, which makes me a total nerd. But I was listening to mainly classical music, and I was really, because I was playing music from a really young age. So all the repertoire stuff that I was playing, I was just so all those composers like, I don't know, Beethoven and Mozart and Clara Schumann and, people
Yeah.
like that. And then I suppose I started listening to, I don't know, I listen to quite a lot of ambient music now.
Okay.
And film scores definitely, when I first heard the English Patient film score, that
Of
was
course, yeah.
gone. Do you know what I mean? That was amazing. And so I suddenly thought, oh my goodness, that bridged the kind of gap between the classical world that I was, really, really kind of involved with to the film world. And then that taught me about storytelling through music. And so, but then I listened to loads and loads of different genres.
For you, what's the key to compose music? What's what makes you tick?
What makes me tick?
Yeah, what gives you the idea of composing something when you start with any project at all? What's the spark?
I think it really is. Whenever I start, it's about the journey of the character mainly. What is the main story to be told? And then really it's just about the truth, because I think what the music can do is really speak to the truth of a journey of a character, because it's the sort of internalized journey, rather than what you're seeing kind of as face value. So if I can spot in the story what, the subtext, and if that subtext to me is interesting, that's sort of what gets me going, really.
So you work with the script.
Yeah.
You're going along with the images. They show you something. They show you the dailies,
Yeah.
and then you decide how it work for you.
Well,
how do you do it?
Well, I don't know. Literally don't know. No, they usually, if I'm on early enough, and I often am brought along quite early, I'll just be on the script and reading the script and like getting into really what the writer's intentions are, and the sort of imagination of the writer and the rhythm of the writer, and the story that they're telling, and learn the kind of beats of the script. And then once that's kind of in my bones, I might start thinking about some themes and sort of sketching, and like having lots of kind of coffees with the people that I'm working with, really, because that's so important, because it's such a shared, you're about to create this whole world, and sort of hanging out is a really big part of it, I think. And then they'll start sending me kind of assemblies, which is footage from when they start shooting. So then I'll start sketching, and then when we get into the edit, that's when I start to kind of refine it and start like becoming really specific about moments rather than kind of broader atmosphere.
Did you ever compose something and then when you see it, with the images, think, "Meh."
Yeah, loads.
It doesn't work.
Well, kind of. I mean, it's funny, but it's interesting because I think when it's not quite right. But sometimes you have to go through that, and it's about your relationship. It's important to me not to be precious about stuff like that, because sometimes that's a really important part of the process, to have an idea, and the really good idea might be just over the top of that, but you might need the director to help you see that or get there. So, I've never, I don't think, come with an approach that's been completely wildly wrong. They've never been like, what the fuck?
What the fuck is
What the fuck is this? No one's ever said that. Touch wood. But I think definitely, certainly there've been times when I've been like, I think this is the right thing, but I need more now to help me get to the real truth of what I'm doing, and that will be, through conversations, and that sort of that helps me sort of get there sometimes.
So what's the most important piece of information that you acquired during the last, during your career? What's that piece of information that you think, well, that was really valuable, that was something important, that changed something, my perspective of my way of viewing things, when it comes to music?
Apart from sleep, when somebody said you have to sleep, I was like, oh yeah, I think that does actually, because I tend to not. And then I realized that actually sleep and rest are actually really, really important.
When I sleep, I'm better.
When I sleep, I'm better. And they were like, yeah. I was like, oh yeah, okay. But no, I think it's really important to just. Someone said to me, you have to leave the critic when you're writing. You have to leave the critic outside, because you have to have a sort of fearlessness about making work, whether it's writing music or, I think anyway, or whatever it is that you're creating. And if you are someone who has a very loud critic, I have a very loud critic in my head, I have to banish them. I have to literally banish them and shout at them and tell them to wait outside the studio until I'm ready, and then they can come in, and they can come back into my head. But I think the fearlessness is really important, because once you can lift those kinds of the boundaries that fear can sometimes place in front of you, then you start getting to. That's when my imagination starts kind of really sort of ticking, and then you get to the kind of wild ideas, and then you can use your skill and your experience to then sort of really hone those down sort of technically. But I think, I think leaving the critic outside was a really big one when someone just said that to me. And it's such an obvious thing to say, but I never even practiced it. And then I talked to myself in the studio a bit. And that was really useful, getting rid of that thing.
What's the main challenge, at the time to approach a piece of art or a movie or a short or a show? What's the main challenge for you at the time to compose music? What's that thing, that it's the most difficult thing for you when you start a work?
I think it is. I know I keep saying it, but I think it really is finding what's like completely authentic to that story and the real truth of that. Because sometimes I've thought I've understood a story, and then realised that actually, no, it's not really about that. It's about something else, and I've kind of missed it or something, and so I have to then go back in. And that really is the challenge. I think that's why I start with the script so much, because I really need to understand what the journey is and what that story is. And that can take some time. And then when I see the visuals, that's when you see what the aesthetic looks like. And that will inform loads of other things like instrumentation and all the kind of colours that you want to kind of bring to it. But emotionally, which is really what music, I think, is kind of about. It's the sort of emotional narrative, if you like. That has got to be truthful, because if it's not truthful, then everyone can hear it's not truthful, and then you've kind of lost, I think.
Is there a point when you think now it's ready, or it's never ready?
I don't think it's that well.
You want to change something like at the end. No, we have to change this.
Well,
or it's like at some point you say, now we can
I think
use
honestly,
it.
unless a producer or a director or sort of basically like the deadline hits, I don't think I would ever stop, and I don't think it's ever finished. I really don't. There's always some sort of something to tweak, or I think that's always the way. But you do have to finish it, and by the nature of the deadline, I think things do start to feel complete. I don't think there've been a couple of times where I really felt that it was an incomplete thing, and that I really wanted to. But you sort of respect the time that you're given, and so then it does sort of become a complete thing. But always, oh my God, like given the opportunity to go back in and like change a voicing or like change a chord even sometimes, I will always do it, but I'm not allowed.
So that's a difficult one.
Yeah.
You ever regret to accept a job? Like, yeah.
Oh my God. Well, actually, I find actually with jobs, the best bit is when you say yes, and then it's like hell. It's awful. I really find it really painful. And then, like, especially the middle bit. But no, I don't think I've never regretted any of the work, because all of them, definitely there have been ones that I felt really, really challenged by and really thought, is this right for me? Is this like, am I being used in the way that I feel like I should be or could be being used? And there have been times that there's like one time that I wasn't really sure that it was a good match, which was years and years ago. But generally speaking, I think with each project, you find the good in it. I always, the reasons I say yes are basically because of the person that I'm going to be collaborating with, all the people, the director and the writer and the producers. And if I sort of fall in love with them, then you sort of fall in love with the work, and then it all sort of becomes like a meaningful thing, even though it's hell most of the time. So, it's not always hell. Usually there is like a lot of fun in it, but they all have their moments for sure. Oh my God.
So what's the weight of music? I ask you that because, when I think it, in some ways it's like technology. If you notice it, it's not working.
Yeah.
It's working when it fits together so perfect with the images, then you can, distinguish one from the other. I don't know if you agree with that.
I sort of do agree with that, but I think that I think it's okay to notice the music. But I do think that you have, if you notice it, you sort of want to understand what it's speaking, like what its rhythm is and what it's speaking with. Like I did a film that was like had quite a controversial score, and that was very exciting actually, because I knew when we started doing it, and when the director asked me to, it was a period film, and she wanted a very, very modern score. And I was like, oh God, I really started to sweat. And I was like, okay, let's like go for it. And I'm excited. And the reason why because I knew that people would hear it, because what they would see visually and what they would hear would be like worlds apart. And that was, so, you know, related to that question, because I do think that when the music is so much a part of the texture of the whole experience of watching a film, that's when you really nailed it. It's just like enhancing every moment, and you're sort of along for the ride, and you don't even know, you know, you don't necessarily need to think, you know, in the moment that you're experiencing a scene, what beautiful music necessarily. You just want to see, like, you want to be in the story. So when I did Vita in Virginia, and it was that score, it was really terrifying. But I realized that she was totally right. The director was totally right, because the music, it was so smart, because the music really wanted to speak to these characters and the journey of their characters, and they were kind of iconoclasts, these two women, and they were living very, very modern lives within a society and a time that wasn't like permitting that for them. So she really wanted the music to speak to that, and I really agreed with it. And interestingly, whenever we put kind of, she also didn't really want it to be very that feminine, and so I sort of wanted to find this kind of neutrality to the score. And every time we put anything period onto the picture, it was like it was awful. So anything that period, so it was really interesting that it wouldn't hold anything that was kind of from the period. It would like it had taken on this kind of life. So
You remember the first time you saw that in a theater?
what? Oh,
This movie.
yeah. Oh my!
And it was like, fuck.
I was so scared. But then the response to the music was amazing. So I was interested in that. So the people were up for it, and they liked it, and they were interested in how it can, you know, the score doesn't always need to be to blend into what might be the obvious thing, you know, the obvious aesthetic. It can sort of, but then again, I think that's the thing, because the truth in that score is about the women and about their journey, and that was, I think, a good choice.
So would you say sometimes you have to allow yourself to, you know, be radical, you know?
Yeah, totally. But the thing is, I think always.
I don't know if that's the word, but you know.
No. I know. I think that's a really good word. I think my approach is always to do the thing that is not the obvious thing, always, because it's what keeps me interested, I think. I don't think you always have to be radical necessarily. Again, I know I need a new word for like truthful, but you don't need to be radical to be truthful. You can, but I think with music, because it's such an ephemeral thing, you can definitely get into like the deeper. You can get into the deeper conversation of what you're experiencing in the story. And that doesn't mean you have to be kind of like really alternative with the things that you're writing. But it does mean that, I think, for me anyway, it means that I sit with something and I'll kind of experience it before I've started writing, and then I'll have to watch it again. And then really when I feel like I'm really getting to know them, and then I kind of ask some questions, and then get to sort of a point where it feels like it's in harmony with it, but it's not necessarily the obvious thing, because I think with subtext, which is what music I think speaks to, it's a very complex, and like a human subtext is a very layered thing. So I think there's always the opportunity to kind of look for.
Let's drink to that.
All right, cool. Okay.
Cheers.
Cheers.
So can I ask you, you remember the day you decided, maybe not the day, but the time of your life, you decided, I'm gonna do that for a living, and I'm gonna try at least do that for a living.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Please.
All right.
Tell us that
no,
story.
I don't. It's weird. It's literally like one of those things where you kind of like wake up, and I know that I don't know if anyone else like relates to this, but it's sort of, I was doing it at university, but I was writing all this kind of like atonal, like really weird music, which I loved, and I really felt like it was a real rite of passage. It was like I wrote a piece for like a trombone and a light switch called Crayon. It was so weird.
A trombone and a light switch. I'm interested.
Yeah, it was so weird. So I was like so clear. So there was like things that I was really interested in. But then I knew I wanted to do film, really. And then someone said to me, go and do, I started working with a film composer, and he said, go and do some theatre, because that will make you good. And he was totally right, I think. And And then I just sort of started, like, kept doing it and just sort of kept, like, turning up, basically. And, like, people being like, all right, you know, she's here again.
Thank you for the trombone.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for the trombone and the light switch. We don't ever need that ever again. And then really, you know, I was obviously, when I was in my 20s, had other jobs and stuff, you know, that weren't, you know, I was working for an orchestra or other, like, you know, I was driving a transit van around, like, you know, just non-musical jobs. And then so when those kind of became less and I sort of started doing more and more stuff, and then it just sort of started growing to the point when there was actually a moment in my studio. I was so stressed, and I realized, because I really was just like saying yes to so much, just everything, just to get going, and, you know, just to be working and building and growing. And I think I had like 4 things on the go or something, and was literally like I think I was doing like 4 hours of work, 2 hours of sleep, 4 hours of work, 2 hours of sleep.
2 hours sleep.
Yeah, exactly. Just
That's
kind of
good.
like, yeah, it's good. Definitely don't ever do it. It sends you completely mental. But I got the work done. And that's when I realized that I was doing it for, I think, do you know what? I don't even know. Like, I feel so lucky. Even like in the last year, some of the stuff that I've been doing, I go like, oh my goodness, this is actually something that I do for a living. I know it's mental. I know it's mad, but it does. I do like I am grateful. So I don't know.
Do you remember? I think you started doing the music for shorts.
Yeah.
How was that?
Short films.
Yeah.
Yeah. Short films are really hard to write music
That's
for.
what
I
mean.
think they're really
It
hard
seems-
to
it seems
make.
simple, but
No, they're so difficult.
more complicated.
I think it is, because you can't like waffle around in a short film. Like, you literally,
You have
it's
to be
like
very specific.
so specific. It's like, it's got to be kind of a completely perfect sort of thing. And the shorter the film, it's really interesting as well, because I find, I don't know, maybe this is unfair, but like a short film that's 20 minutes, I don't really think is a short film.
No, it's not a
It's
short
not a
film.
short film.
It's almost a documentary.
Yeah, exactly. That's like a norm. You know what I mean? That's an episode.
Yes.
So, but so like a, I don't know, 10 or 8 minute or 10-minute film, I think is really hard. And writing the music for that, yeah, those were really good. I kind of cut my teeth on a few of those, and just really learnt that thematic stuff in short films is really useful, because you just don't have the time to start exploring things. You just have to like nail a really good theme or atmosphere or texture. Even doesn't even have to be like particularly tuneful. It's just got to have a personality that really works for the journey. And that has, yeah, you have to be really concise and really just like, that just has to be a very confident thing. And then you can sort of get away with it. It's like, I don't mean get away with it. I mean like do it really well and be really...
Do it and die.
do it and die. Oh God. Yeah.
Okay, so let's go for the big stuff. Anyone here love Fleabag?
Yay.
So how was that? How was that collaboration? You know, explain
That
us a little
collaboration
bit.
was cool. Yeah, that was great. My sister and I have been working together really for years, from when we were kids. This was the first like professional outing we had when we did the play, and it was so much fun. It was like, it's funny when you're working with someone. Honestly, it makes me so happy when I think about it and stuff, because it really was brilliant. She's probably also my longest collaborator because we've grown up together. So it's sort of, it makes sense that we've kind of like have a good communication together. But she can just make facial expressions and I'll sort of know what to do. So that is really good. And that made things kind of quick. But that whole team, like Harry Bradbeer and Gary Dolner, Harry the director and Gary the editor, when we did series 1, it was so great that coming back to do series 2, when I first went into the cutting room to see, it was literally like seeing family, the whole lot. So that was cool. And also I think because we had such a different approach to the music for the second series, it was really exciting that. And also we were all a little bit older, a bit more experienced, and felt like, you know, what Phoebe had written, there was such a mature, you know, there was a new kind of sophistication and maturity that she'd brought to it, and that felt really exciting for me anyway, to start exploring that. When we started thinking, you know, about like exploring those themes of kind of redemption and family and grief and love, and, you know, they're epic, and so when I was sort of suggesting maybe we could have a kind of Greek chorus, kind of approach to it with a choir, and they were interested, and they were like, okay, yeah, okay, like nutter, and then we sort of thought and then it just sort of all started to work really well, and yeah, it was great. I really loved doing that.
So, were you guys expecting the success of the first season?
Oh my God, no.
You saw it coming?
No.
No.
No, Christ, no.
Nothing.
No, nothing.
Don't lie to me.
No, I swear on my life, literally. Because it was kind of fun because it was a play. And we had no expectation with the play that it would be successful. But people liked that. And that it's so nice because the way the play was made, I shouldn't say this, the way the play was made and the way everything, we sort of nicknamed it...
Drink more.
Exactly.
Drink more.
I'll drink this before I say this, yeah. Okay.
Now you're ready.
Yeah, now I'm ready. We've always called it a sort of, the way we work is sort of rock and roll shambles. Because it's sort of like someone has an idea and we can sort of, and someone else goes, oh yeah, that's a good idea. And then someone just says, oh, maybe I'll just try that. And it always somehow, it's like a total shambles, but it somehow kind of works. And we did that with the play and people liked it. And then, but I think because there was no expectation, I don't know, it was light. It felt light, the success of that. It was really, I don't know, we were just grateful. And then with series 1, we were like, great, like, are you sure? Like, brilliant, like, rock and roll shambles, like, to telly, great. Yeah. And so then the success of that, the response to that was wild. And the fact that people related to that character was so, I can't even tell you, it just felt, if anything, for all of us who made it, it just felt like, I don't know, when people respond to your work, you feel like you've shared something, you always feel like you've shared something of, I don't know, of yours, you've given something out. And to have, it sounds so cheesy, but it just makes you feel a bit less alone, like when people like stuff.
People like me.
Yeah, exactly. And then, so that was amazing. And again, like really, really sort of surprising, I suppose, because we were such a scrappy group, like, and then
misfits.
Total misfits. We were just like, that's amazing. And then series 2, and so it has been really wild. It really has been. I can't even tell you. Seriously, my sister and I we sit down and we go like, "What? How has this happened?" It's yeah, we're great.
So let me ask you: you do the play, no expectations.
Yeah.
Then the show, first season, no expectations, but then with the second one.
The second one was scary because
So
then we were
when your sister tells you, I want you to do the second, the composer.
Yep.
Cover, no.
Yeah.
I don't want to do it.
No, I'd be like, I'm so scared. No. I mean, obviously, like, we were all exactly the same team, and we were all kind of like raring to go, just mainly because we kind of wanted to. We'd all been working on our different jobs, kind of in between, and it was so nice coming back to that character in that world, and we were just like, "Hey, Fleabag, we're back," So it was really, really nice, but definitely like doing the success of the first series. I don't know, like, doing a second series of anything, I think, is, like, terrifying.
Scary.
It's freaking terrifying, yeah. And you don't know how it's going to go, and, you just have to trust that whatever you're doing is, like, authentic to what you think it should be. And then if people like it, or if they, that's sort of it becomes separate, it's not, you're making it for your audience, but you're also making it for the character. The character needs to go on a really, on their own journey, and so, yeah, that's what you never, because if you do it for any other reason, it just feels like it doesn't feel like it's true.
What's that? What you had in your mind when you're doing the second season? It was different from the thoughts you had on the first season.
Yes. Yes, definitely. It was. The first season was like, because it doesn't have very much music in it. It was just really that, like, guitar stuff. and the thing at the beginning,
Exactly.
the titles, and that was the way we that was sort of important. That it was important that there was not really much music in the first series. The script didn't really want to kind of the script didn't have it didn't really need it, I don't think. And so it was really important that the bit of music that we did here was just like really direct and really spoke to the absolute what that character was like. And in the first series we know that she's very, she has a very chaotic life and she's very complex and is making all these mistakes but has a huge heart and is very charismatic and also doesn't apologize for anything. So I was thinking, what if it was this like really badass like guitar music, sort of like metal almost? And again, they were like, okay. I was like, just let me like have a go.
My people will call your people.
Yeah, my people will call your people. And then I was like, okay, cool. And then, and so I did it, and then I sent it to the director and the producers, and I just got this video of them like headbanging when they were listening to it. So that was great. But then the second series, I think we didn't really talk about it that much, actually, what it should be. Again, I just read the script, and I just knew that the themes were so much bigger. And so, like, with the whole family, like, we weren't just looking at one character's perspective anymore. We were looking at Claire, and we were looking at the dad, and so it felt like there was more room. And also, she wasn't looking at the camera as much, so that felt like there was more room for the score to be kind of looking on a bit more. And that relationship that she was having with the camera, maybe she would have that with the music. There was one point when Phoebe and I were talking about it, when we were wondering whether Fleabag would actually control the music.
Yeah.
So where she would actually kind of, there'd be a bit of score, and then she would look at the camera and be like, beautiful bit of music, right? Or something weird, do you know what I mean? Something like that. So there's lots of kind of ways of like, her connection to the music was always really important. Yeah, or like, what the fuck is that? Turn it off. That character's, sort of relationship with it was always really important. And again, with the timing of it, it felt really, the way Gary was editing with these like hard edits, like these hard cuts to the music, and the rhythm of his editing was very much like that. So although he did a lot of the edits to the music, I would write kind of complete pieces, and then he put them on and sort of shaped them a bit more, which was amazing. So yeah, the writing of it was a bit more intense this time. But the process was sort of the same. It was just nice and fun and kind of and stressful when it needs to be stressful, and then and good when it's good.
So you're doing the music, in your studio.
Yep.
Do you allow anyone to enter your space and hear your music, and you ask for advice, or is like an alone thing? I don't want anyone to be here or listening to anything I'm doing until it's finished.
Yeah, it's a weird one. I'm really specific about that, because the funny thing is that like I spend so much time in my studio. I basically like live in my studio and sleep at home. But it's like when you start thinking about, and it's fine. And so
you need more.
Yeah, maybe I
time.
have that's why I'm just like
Go
thinking about that. Like, oh, Christ. So it's weird. So I've had like people come in and they like bring in like a weird energy. I had like a couple of directors come in once, and they just
You're running my space.
It's like, yeah, they kind of was. I know that sounds so mental, but I was like, you could really feel it, and I really had to like air it for like days, and I couldn't. I was just like, so, and I do ask people to come and have a listen. I have some really like great friends who are also composers, and also people that used to kind of mentor me in a way, like older people, older composers, and I have like 2 or 3. And if I really am doubting, if I really need some sort of like, do you think, is this like total shit or is it okay?
Is this shit?
Is this shit? It's something definitely that I've asked. I will just send it over to them, and they'll kind of have a listen, and sometimes things come really easily. And sometimes I'll be on like a phrase or a rhythm that I'm really finding really difficult to crack in terms of its relationship to the picture. And sometimes like another pair of ears are really useful. I mean, I have to be really sort of careful about that. I think it's because there's so much about taste and instinct, and also it's useful because if someone comes in and says they really like it, it's weird. This is a terrible thing I'm about to say.
I don't like it.
It's like, well, if they don't like it, it's good too, because then I go, okay, let's talk about that. Why? And then, but also, I know that if I'm talking to someone and maybe I don't like their work as much as and if they like it,
You don't like them.
if I don't like them,
I
and
hate you,
yeah,
but you hate the
exactly,
music,
yeah,
then it's
exactly,
okay.
then it's okay. Yeah, exactly. So it's this sort of weird thing. I try not to like indulge in all that stuff because I mean you can spend days just playing with that. But no, it is a really private thing, and the process, you know, because it takes me, I sort of go into the studio at sort of 10 in the morning or something, but I really probably don't start writing until 4. And I don't even know what I'm doing before then, except like being in the studio and like making cups of tea and sort of watching things. And that's, I realize, is just a really important part of that. And I don't really like to be interrupted in that time, and so it's sort of like,
Don't
you know,
bother me.
unless you're an animal. Like if you're an animal, you're allowed, but like if you're a human, not so much. And so yeah, and I'm quite a quiet person. So it's really precious, all of that space. So yeah, bringing people in is
Not good.
sometimes it's not so good.
So I'm curious, when you're working on something,
Yep.
you listen to music apart from the one you're composing, or it's like you put yourself in a void, you know? Until
Yeah,
you
it is a sort. You do put yourself in the void. The void is the right word. The void is the right word. The more I think about this, the more of like the. No, I don't, because if I listen to stuff, my memory, I have literally I have sort of like been at the piano and been like, oh, like playing chords and be like, this is this is so good what I'm playing,
Rock
and then
and
someone else is like, you know, that's like a Beatles song, and I'm like, fuck.
shit, that's not
Shit,
mine.
that's not mine at all. So I'm like, I have to be really careful about that. So I do loads of research, you know, beforehand, and kind of, I get like sound kind of mood boards and playlists before I'm writing, and I kind of figure out what the tone is that I'm going for. And then really when I start, I try not to really, unless I'm, if I'm really stuck, I'll probably start, you know, have a listen to something. But usually you can sort of find a way through.
Do you have something special when you're stuck? You know, like this helps me. Some sort of band or song or
Cigarettes and alcohol. I'm joking. I'm joking. No, I don't.
Robbie Williams.
think. Robbie Williams. That's so nice.
I don't know.
Where's Robbie when you need him? No. Really, when I get really stuck, I have to like leave
Miley Cyrus.
the building. Miley Cyrus. It was so great doing that, honestly, and seeing her, because like also, when like I thought Miley's performance in Black Mirror was so good.
That was weird.
Seeing her,
Tell you, yeah.
because it was so close to her life, or because it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it was quite.
9 Inch Nails plus Miley Cyrus was kind
It was wild. It was definitely wild. Yeah. Yeah, it was interesting. I really loved it though, and I thought she was great in it, and I did think that like meta thing of it being sort of like weirdly like her life was kind of, you know, an interesting choice for something for her to do. And then the 9 Inch Nails. I mean, it's such a good song, that 9 Inch Nails song. So that was like score-wise, that was interesting to like get into that. But yeah.
How was the thing with Black Mirror? How did it happen?
I don't know, they just called me up and said, do you want to do it? And I was like,
No.
really? So it was weirdly, that phone call was weirdly like Black Mirror. I was like, is this real? Can I trust this?
Are you the real thing?
Are you the real thing? Yeah. And genuinely to my agent. So it was like, is this real? I need to know. And then I met Charlie Brooker and was like, okay, fine, this is real. And had a really good meet. Like we did that thing, when you sort of like, you have a spotting session is when you look through, you go through the film and where the music's going to go. And I really loved Charlie Brooker because he started doing all the sound effects with his like voice of like things, and I was like, I love you.
Stop doing
that. It was so good. It was the most genius way to sort of experience something, actually, weirdly. And yeah, that was really, and that all happened really quickly. I was like, the period that they were really the intense period of work I was available for. And so it was like a no-brainer, and Anne, the director, was like a total dream. And when I met her, it was like immediately we clicked, and I totally understood what she was going for. And Black Mirror, that was really, it was a huge thing because I'm such a fan of it, and it was like one of those things that I would say to, he'd be like, well, what do you want to work on? And I'd be like, Black Mirror, like, lol.
It was like, I'm working on Black Mirror and Fleabag.
Yeah, I was like, am I?
The usual stuff.
No, that was cool.
So let me check if you're going to open for questions. It's good? So anyone wants to ask anything? We're up for it. We're going to drink more.
Let's drink.
We're gonna give a glass of wine for the first question.
Please don't anyone say that thing about Charlie Brooker on the internet or anything like that I've just said. I think I'll get in trouble.
I didn't push you there.
No, that's fine.
No questions? No one? Come on, don't be shy. No, they have no questions. Very shy people. Okay, there. We have microphones? Muy bien, gracias. Tienes aquí vino, ¿eh? Lo que no sé si hay copa, pero vino tienes.
I try to do it in English, okay? And you told us everything was like playing, game, amazing, cool, funny, in the process of Fleabag, no? So can you tell us any difficulty, any bad moment or drama or something?
Oh my God, like so many, yeah.
Okay, just one, no? Because if not, it's like amazing.
No, I can't. No? It was really, there was...
Thank you.
It's true, because it's funny, isn't it? Like when you birth the project, like you forget about all the crap, like all the bad stuff, and actually it's important to remember it. Then hooray. Exactly, cheers. 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 There was a really, 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 really tricky moment when I'd written some of the like choral music, and it was working in like episode 1, but it was like not working at all in it was working in episode 4, but it wasn't working at all in episode 1. But like really, really, and like the deadline was like tomorrow, and it wasn't working, and that was like real hell actually, and we didn't know why it wasn't working. And my sister came. We were like, "Fuck! Like, what are we gonna do?" And I realized. So she came to the studio, and we got there at about 10:30, and we watched stuff through, and we were both like, "I don't understand why it's not working." And then I realized that it was because the voices were too mature, and the piece of music was much too mature. And this was like right at the beginning of the episode, and we hadn't seen Fleabag in ages. And last time we saw her, she was like 26, and now she's like 30-something, 32. And so the adult voices, that was and also to be clear, the rest of the team as well were like, it's not working in episode 1. So I was like really, oh my God, like stressed about this. And then Phoebe came to the studio, and we realized, we were like, oh my God, they're too mature. So I knew that I had to then rework it for the beginning of the show for young boys, essentially, for like a boys' choir. And then it would work because the coming of age story then would work from boys to grown-ups. So that was good. But that piece of music then for episode 1, oh my God, Phoebe was sitting behind me, and I was writing it like in the studio, and I think we were there until like 3 a.m. or something, and then and like just like mainlining coffee, and I think so yeah, that was like really stressful. And when it's not working and you all know it's not working and it's your responsibility to make it work and you can't see yet, it's like round the corner. That's hell. So thank God we got there.
So let me ask you a final question, and then if they can,
Yep.
if you can work in whatever you want, you can choose, like in a dream, what would be your dream job, in a movie or a show, something that you're watching or you plan to watch, what would be like, I would like to do this thing or work with this guy or this girl or this director or.
Oh, there's so many. I know that's
You can say 3.
Okay, I can say 3. Okay.
But that's it.
Okay.
Not 4.
Well, damn. Well, I think so. I'm really interested. Well, all the things that I want to do, they're completely unrelated and they're all really different. So, like opera is a big one. So that I am interested in what happens when you start. Like, what happens when you. I don't know, like sort of use music and song and opera and drama and what all of that when you like combine, not in a conventional way, like when you. So I'm sort of like thinking about stuff like that. Anything that I'm about to write an album, so I'm excited about that.
Okay,
that'd be cool. I have no idea what that's going to be yet, though. I'm so stressed about it as well. And I don't know, like I'd love to write a ballet. The music for a ballet and yeah, and like I'm really excited about Emma, which is the next thing, because it will be like the score will be big and sort of romantic and.
So you started working in that already, or?
Yeah, sort of, yeah, like softly, and then.
Softly.
Yeah, softly. So I'm sort of like softly. I don't know what that means. Like, no, but like Tuesday.
Like, are you working on
Tuesday
that softly?
Softly. Yes, Tuesday. And then Tuesday is hardly.
Okay. It's softly until Wednesday.
So softly
Then
until
it's
Wednesday. And then it's like, yeah, the real business. So, yeah.
Okay, one last question. Anyone knows there?
Hi.
Hi.
Would you like to work in an animation project sometime?
Oh, yeah, definitely. That's actually a really good one. Yeah, completely.
Are you watching currently any show of animation?
No, I'm not. I'm not working in animation. Someone has just asked me to do a wordless to tell a story. It's a book, actually a children's book, and they're going to make it into an animation, and there'll be no speaking in it, and that I think is really beautiful. Like Up is like an absolutely stunning example of that being done really well, and so yeah, and that's interesting because I think. Animation and ballet are really linked in that way, and yeah, definitely that kind of world and those aesthetics. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, people. Okay, a last one. Here in the front.
Pregunta corta. ¿Te podremos ver dirigir tus composiciones, tu música, tus bandas pronto?
No, I can tell you. ¿Quieres decir dirigir en una orquesta o?
Sí.
We want to see you anytime direct your own orchestra with your, compositions.
With my baton.
Yeah.
No, it's so funny because I have such respect for conductors. I find that I would like to, I think, but my brain, if I'm recording music with an orchestra for a film or TV or whatever it is, to be able to listen properly, I can't be conducting. I can literally do one or the other. It's like, and so I need to be in the control room. But the wonderful thing is that my relationship with conductors is like precious to me because they interpret what you are saying, and then they ask the musicians to realize that. And so I have a conductor that I like work with all the time, and he's like a magical human, and. Yeah, I wish I was good at it.
The short answer is no.
No. Yeah, that was a really wobbly way of saying no.
Ladies and gentlemen, Isobel Waller-Bridge.